to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Work session and council meeting, as well as the Dan Jones right-of-way dedication.
And I'll second that because it's quicker to say it that way.
All right, we have a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Don Loudon.
4.
Greg Zuzan.
4.
Robert Pope.
4.
Aaron Tevabaugh.
4.
Steve Eisenbarth.
4.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll open up for the first public comment session. Is there anyone out in the public that would like to come forward? Bob?
Yes, Bob Culler, 1483 Laurel Oak Drive, Avon, Indiana. I'm here representing the Coalition for Responsible Growth in Indiana, or excuse me, in Avon. At the end of the new business on your agenda is a initiative introduction, I should say, of the ordinance to 2021-21, amending the salary ordinance. Included in that amendment is a proposal to transition to a planner code enforcement GIS position from part-time to full-time. I want to say that the Coalition for Responsible Growth fully supports this initiative, even though we feel that there may be times where the GIS may overshadow the code enforcement, but we feel the code enforcement is very important for our town as we continue to grow and uniformity throughout the town and providing what we intend and what we hope that Avon will continue to look like. So again, we are in support of this. We hope that and encourage each of the town council members to consider that and hopefully grant that initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else want to come forward? All right, with no one else coming forward, we'll close the public comment period and move on to council comment and liaison reports. Aaron, you want to start us off?
Sure. Yeah, I just want to say appreciation to our officers this week. Encountered a potentially volatile situation and took an individual off the street and made this community a little bit safer. So appreciate their work on that. And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Robert.
Just a couple so from the BZA, they elected Marcus Turner to the chair, and they passed the Reagan Logistics Park Path variance. And I wanted to give a shout out for the Parks Department, July 3rd. This is mainly for everyone at home. The Avon Night at the Park, July 3rd, 6 o'clock. Go to our Facebook page. There's an auction for 2 VIP seatings. Get in there and beat Julie. Beat her to it. That's all I got.
Greg, would you like to go next?
We had an RDC meeting on Monday and attended the Hendricks County Economic Development Partnership Board meeting on Wednesday. And don't forget to attend Rib Fest out at the county fairgrounds on Saturday from 4 to 10.
Got lots of fun stuff coming up. Steve?
The only thing with Steve Moore in the audience, I got to give a shout out to him. Thank you. I had a resident here, it was a week or two ago that sent me a text. First they called and said, oh, we have an unsafe situation. And then Steve Moore responded within 5 minutes he was on the scene and shut it down what the complaint was, and this person was impressed with that. So Steve, I don't think I told you that, and Steve's in the audience here, says thank you so much. And all joking aside, that was very appreciated. So staff, I know you're all doing a great job. We just don't always recognize it. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. There is no old business, so we'll move on to new business, and that will be authorizing hiring process for Avon PD. Dave?
Good evening, Council. Dave Margison, Avon PD here. We are requesting your approval to, I guess, sign the contract for the hiring process that we need to administer fairly soon. Our current process has 2 candidates remaining, and we have 2 employees that are currently on administrative leave. We're unsure the status of either of those currently, but we may potentially have to fill a vacancy or 2 that would exhaust the current list. So we just want to be proactive so that we have candidates in place ready to move instead of being behind the curve on it. If you have any questions, I'll do my best at answering.
Any discussion? I mean, we've done this in the past, and it's been beneficial to the town and to you guys as a department. So, I think for me, it's a smart thing to go ahead and move forward with. Any other discussion on the matter?
Do we need a motion or just shake our head? I make a motion then that we authorize the hiring process for the Avon PD to start.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Julie?
Greg Zuzen,
4.
Aaron Teveba,
4.
Don Loudon,
4.
Robert Pope,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth.
4.
You got it. Go hire him,
Yeah,
Dave.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the final reading of ordinance 2021-09, which was amending the false alarm regulations. Dan, are you speaking on that, or? Okay.
Yes, this ordinance makes technical corrections to your false alarm registration ordinance, which will ease in the administration of that. Your ordinance was pretty outdated, so we made some changes. Since you saw this at the introduction in section 434, you will notice there's a change in that this ordinance would allow us to increase the fines if there are prior violations within the same calendar year. Previously, the ordinance talked about in the last 12 months. Staff, I think rightly so, identified that as very difficult to administer because you have to go back and keep looking up when all their violations were over a long period of time. This would allow everybody to start with a clean slate in January 1, and then we would count that way. So that change is made. I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding the amended ordinance.
Do we have a lot of businesses that have 4, 5, 6, 7 false alarms a year?
Yes,
Yes.
and more, 9 or 10. And if they have a technical problem in their system, for example, and they don't get it fixed, then this could lead to, we've had 9 to 13 from the same business. And that's why it initially got to our radar, was we were really having a lot more false alarms than one might think.
We've already had one business that's had $2,000 violations.
Okay.
Yeah, this 4-34 schedule looks very appropriate. It doesn't look like it's extremely punishing, but it makes it very clear, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. And then, the 7th being like, okay, let's get over with.
Yeah, and the problem is, of course, that our emergency responders have to go every time, and they can't assume it's a false alarm.
Mhm.
So I know it really puts the onus on businesses just to make sure that their systems are working properly. And one would think they would want them to be working properly, but it's really designed, the whole purpose of the ordinance originally was to make sure that we weren't wasting the time of our responders. And also, they need to know when they're going that there's a strong likelihood there's actually something going on there. And so that's the original intent. So this ordinance is a lot more clear in terms of how it can be enforced, and the clerk treasurer has to enforce this. So I was surprised at the extent of the number of violations when we first started talking about it. So this will really help.
Okay, thank you. It is a final reading, so do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2021-09 as presented, the amending the false alarm regulations.
I'll second.
All right, great. First and second, Julie, roll call, please.
Aaron Teveball,
For.
Robert Pope,
4.
Greg Zuzen,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Don Loudon.
4. Moving on, ordinance 2021-10, which is amending the ordinance violations bureau regulations.
Yes, this ordinance would make changes to bring your Ordinance Violations Bureau ordinance into compliance with the law in terms about what we can do when we have a violation. Your ordinance was really kind of almost all 1995. The law has changed, so we've gone through and made corrections that need to be made. And again, we think these changes will streamline enforcement, make it easier for both the town and someone who has a violation to deal with the issue, resolve it, and move forward.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion?
My only question is the same one I had when we had the introduction, the civil penalty. Do we update those fines?
Yes.
Actually, we didn't. So one of the things we discussed, those are in different places in the ordinance. The Ordinance Violation Bureau is just citing what's in the original ordinance. So we are going to review those, but they'll have to come back as changes in those specific areas in the ordinance. So this is just citing what the ordinance says. So we actually have to change the actual ordinance. We can't just change it in this form. For each one, correct. So each of those different things is a different violation in a different place in the ordinance. This has just consolidated them in one spot. So in order to change that, we have to change that actual ordinance.
It's a different place in the code,
Yes.
the code.
So even though, expanding on what Greg is talking about, under false alarm, it says after 3 in 1 year, it's showing a different amount. So the fact that we just approved the other ordinance, will we see an amendment coming on this for that particular item individually as we're making the changes?
Right. What we do, when we do the codification of ordinances, we'll come in and make these changes as those other ordinances are amended. Then we'll pick that up in this table.
So
So how
not,
long do you think it'll take you to get through these civil penalties then?
How many do you do in one?
A few months.
One meeting.
Well, because the point is, these changes were from 1995. I think it was the date they were given. So we're 25 years later, 26 years later, and it's still, we're assessing the civil penalty from 1995 in 2021. That's my only point.
Yeah, we'll go through them as fast as we can. I think Julie and I started to go through them last week, and then we kind of stopped, as Mitchell said, you can't just change them on the form, that we actually have to go change all the ordinances. So we couldn't do that quickly. So staff will go through them all, identify what needs to change, and we'll start changing them as quickly as we can and getting those ordinances back to you. Some of them are probably okay. Not every one of them needs to change, but some of them do.
so Dan, this question's more directed to you. Since we've just approved the ordinance 2021-09 with the alarm, if there is a violation, does that create a gray area? Do they follow this or do they follow our ordinance?
No, the table that you see before you is just a reference table. So you have to go back to the enacting ordinance, and like the change you made tonight on false alarms is effective right away.
Okay,
And so that's the fine that is in effect. And this is a, what I call a carrying table. It just is really a cross-reference is really what it is.
okay.
And we have, you will see in your pipeline, you have some technical correction ordinances that are coming through about the code to get rid of references to like a town board or town marshal, some things that we found. We were cleaning things up. We work with Ryan on that. And so you'll see some, what I call technical correction ordinances come through. And those technical corrections will solve the problem.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Questions? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion concerning 2021-10, amending the ordinances violations, Bureau regulations. I motion that we accept as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Julie, would you take roll call, please?
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Don Loudon,
4.
Aaron Teveba,
Form.
Greg Zuzen,
4.
Robert Pope.
4.
Next is ordinance 2021-11, amending the fireworks regulations.
Yes, this ordinance seeks to bring you in compliance with the ever-changing statutes regarding fireworks. And so the provision that's new is C, which is in red, and it has to do with public displays, which means displays of fireworks to which the public are invited. So this doesn't apply to what you do at your home or on your own property or on private property, but if you are either charging admission to get in, or like if the town had a public display of fireworks here at the park, then what happens is you have to get a permit for that or a license from the Washington Township Fire Chief. But then what the state legislature said is that they want those persons conducting public displays to carry insurance. And for reasons not known to me, they decided that each town or city should be the people who may require that insurance and check on it. Not the fire marshal who's granting the permit, but us. So I'm not sure what that's all about, but what they did is it's all about trying to protect any persons who were invited to the event, members of the public, if they're harmed, if they're injured because a firework doesn't go off correctly, or if their car is damaged, then the state legislature wanted them, the operators, to have insurance where people could make claims, and they wanted someone to be presented with that certificate, and that's going to be us. The range that the statute allowed was between $10,000 and $100,000, leaving it up to you what would be the appropriate amount. And our ordinance says the highest amount, because if you were injured seriously, and if a child, for example, were injured seriously by a firework, $10,000 wouldn't go very far in medical expenses. So what this says, it brings us into conformance by saying, well, if you're going to make us do this, I suppose we'll do it, and we'll set the amount at the highest amount. And so if there are public displays, then this would be the local law which tells an operator how they're going to post their certificate insurance and show that proof to you. And again, it's just another thing for the clerk treasurer to do.
I guess my question would be, will the fire chief of Washington Township let us know who he has given a permit so that we know to request the certificate of insurance?
We believe, I've spoken to the state fire marshal about this, and we believe that what will happen is that they will not actually, they will not grant the license until they know that Julie has received a copy of the certificate. It'll be just a box on their checklist. So I actually think it'll work the other way around, is that when someone applies, the state fire marshal or the state fire marshal designee, who would be our local fire inspector, will give the applicant a list of things to do, among which is to get a proof of insurance at the appropriate level and have some certificate from Ms. Loker that they have provided that to her before they'll grant it.
Okay.
And again, I think it would have made more sense for the fire inspector to do this. But again, I also think that the state legislature probably contemplated that the fire inspector worked for the town. In our situation, it's a little different.
Or in the case of volunteer fire departments, maybe too.
Correct.
I got off the wall question here. So Dan, you know how our town boundaries are kind of cobbled up and everything. Suppose they're wanting to do this just outside of our town boundaries, and then none of this really applies, right?
You have to go to the county then.
And then the
County auditor.
and then the county may not have as strict standards as we do. Do we know that?
They may have as low as $10,000 as a liability insurance requirement. And I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
They could have a lower amount.
I guess I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's just reminds me, the more we can get our town boundaries in the township together, we can stop some of this confusion, because, I read through here and I see very clear, it does say within the town limits. And there could be some guy setting them off just in this little parcel that's just not in ours that we're trying to, work on. But, okay, I'm sorry. Don't mean to whine on it. Just trying to think it through.
That was a great response to your question, Steve.
Do you have an answer for me?
Any other discussion? And if not, could we get a motion?
I'll make a motion. We adopt ordinance 2021-11, amending fireworks regulations as presented.
Second, anyone?
I'm the one to second tonight, so I will second it.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Yep.
Julie?
Don Loudon,
4.
Greg Zuzen,
For,
Robert Pope,
4.
Aaron Teveba,
Form.
Steve Eisenbarth.
4.
All right, next is an introduction of ordinance 2021-12, which is an ordinance amending the 2021 salary, wages, and benefits for the employees of the town of Avon. Ryan, are you speaking on that?
Yeah, I'll speak to it. And I don't know if Dave will want to get up and talk about the police portion at all, but this is really just a cleanup ordinance. There's a couple of things we've done over the last couple of months in terms of hiring and filling positions. And so we paid some different salaries. I think the council was aware of all these. We just hadn't cleaned up the ordinance. And so this was kind of the perfect opportunity to clean those up. So, changing some titles and then putting their actual salaries into the ordinance. The planning director, the public works director, Steve, the parks director, we kind of changed the terminology for that. As you guys are all aware, the communications coordinator, we hired in at a higher salary, but again, we did so to bring in someone who we thought was more qualified than what we were originally going to get. And then as Mr. Kohler spoke to earlier, Bill had talked to the town council about changing the part-time planner code enforcement officer to a full-time planner code enforcement / GIS planner. So in order to do that, the salary ordinance does need to be modified. And so the pay rate is in there, as well as then striking that from a part-time position to make it a full-time position. And then the final one, something that kind of actually came up since the last meeting, Suzanne, our administrative assistant, another town reached out to her and tried to steal her. So I threw in here, I'd hate to lose Suzanne, especially in the current environment in terms of ability to get someone who's qualified. I'd hate to lose Suzanne over a couple of dollars an hour. So I talked her into sticking around, but I did tell her that I would try to put in. I know I've talked to a couple of you before. I've already had some discussions about potentially giving that employee some additional duties as well. And so next year or through the budget process, we'll probably talk about that as well, and assigning her some additional things, some additional responsibilities. So I know this is a pay raise, but it's also, we'll give her some additional duties to correspond with those. And then the last one is, I believe Brian has spoken with all of you about this before as well, but the police department added some additional specialty pay as well. For some of their officers who do attend additional training or who participated in kind of above and beyond type activities. And so I know the police department wanted to put some rewards in there for those officers who are participating in those things and who are willing to go and get those additional qualifications. So there's a stipend in there for those particular items as well. Happy to answer any questions.
We've talked about the code enforcement GIS position for a bit. When would that go in effect? I know that was a problem. We were worried about possibly losing Daniel. I want to make sure that's going to go in as soon as possible, so we don't lose that.
So you are introducing it today. So I know I talked to Bill about it today, and he apologized for not being here. He wasn't feeling well, so he went home. But I guess he has communicated to Daniel. Originally, we were hoping to kind of start him July 1st. But I think he has kind of told Daniel to not expect it until August. So if you guys want to just get this done and get it out of the way, you're welcome to do that. If you don't, I think it's already been explained to Daniel that it may not be until August until that happens. So if you guys want to wait to your July 8th meeting, I think that's fine too. So I think it's really at your guys' discretion.
Do we have a concern of losing him?
I don't think
If we
so.
delay it and follow
I think
proper-
he knows it's in the process, so I think he'd be okay.
Okay.
Again, it probably wouldn't hurt to do it if the council's not concerned about it, but I think either
There's not
way.
a
is
lot of
acceptable.
material substance on here, so I'd be in favor to suspend the rules and add it to the agenda
We'll make a motion.
and do the final reading.
You make it. I'll
That's my
second.
motion.
Yeah, all right.
You want a second?
I'll second.
All right, then.
All right, then we'll go ahead and we'll consider it our
Then roll call that.
final
We
reading.
need to vote on that.
Yeah, we
Oh, we have to
Oh, we
take
got
a
to
vote.
vote,
I
got to
forgot.
vote.
The amendment.
Okay, let's take a vote to amend.
All right, Greg Zuzen,
4.
Don Loudon,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth.
4.
Robert Pope,
4.
Aaron Tivaba.
Four.
Okay. So now it becomes our final reading, ordinance 2021-12. Is there any further discussion?
No, Exhibit A looks good. I'm fine with it.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-12 and ordinance amending the 2021 salaries, wages, and benefits for the employees of the town of Avon as presented.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. We have a first and a second, Julie.
All right, Aaron Tivaba,
Four.
Robert Pope,
4.
Greg Zuzen,
4.
Don Loudon,
4.
and Steve Eisenbarth.
4.
Thanks, everybody. Legal counsel report, Dan?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, you will have some technical corrections ordinances coming through. We're cleaning up the code and getting things fixed that need to be fixed. They're fairly boring, but we need to make them. And then we also will have a set of ordinances coming through reacting to the new laws that are passed that take effect July 1. So you'll be seeing those at your coming meetings, and we've got those heading toward Ryan Canyon. So they'll be alarmed by the number, but they're fairly routine. And we'll be doing BZA training in July and Plan Commission training in July and getting that done now that Bill's been here a little bit. And so those two important things will be done by the end of July.
Dan, when is that in July for the Plan Commission? Because we have that new member.
It's at their regular meeting.
Okay, at the regular meeting. Okay, I'll make sure he knows that. Thank you.
June, you'll be at July,
You'll
right?
you'll be hearing about it tomorrow or Monday. I mean.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, this is the last public comment session. Is there anyone that wants to come forward and speak? With no one coming forward, we'll close that. Council comment? Anyone?
Nothing.
I'm just going to say that I'm looking forward to all the events that are coming up. The night at town for the July 4th and Rib Fest, and it's a fun time of year.
You're in the dunk tank, right, Greg?
I
Oh,
thought you were
man,
gonna
I'm
say
going.
no. All right, council calendar.
Not much, obviously, night at the park and Rib Fest. Also work session tomorrow night with the township, 6:30 at the Washington Township Government Center. And our next meeting is July 8th, and we do have a work session at 5:30. That's all I've got.
Great, thank you. We're adjourned.